John Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you." Barack Obama said, "Pick yourself up and dust yourself off as we move forward as America." With a new president set to put his hand on the Bible, we wonder what messages we'll be left with. Welcome to the Huddle. I'm Brendan Kownacki. Mark's off this week, but I've brought in some reinforcements to look at just what's going on behind the scenes as the inauguration takes shape. I've got longtime TV director Max Schindler, a friend and mentor of mine, who's going to give us a little peek behind the scenes of what's being done at the network level and across the Capitol complex to prepare for the inauguration of Joe Biden and share it with the world. And he's been a great teacher of me for everything I know about TV. He's been around it a little bit longer than I. Max, thanks for being here.
Oh, happy to do it, man. You were a great guy to work with, so good to see your success.
You and I met like 12 years ago.
Yeah, that was a hell of an inaugural. That was a crazy one, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
that was wild. That was Obama's first, right?
Obama's first.
That was wild. That was the biggest crowd I've ever seen at an inauguration. I mean, that was insane in a good way, in a great way.
And that's when they shut down 395, so you had all those people walking in the 3rd Street tunnel.
Oh, right. It was crazy crowded. I mean, despite what the Trump people would have you believe, that was really insane crowd for that inaugural. Reagan's was huge like that too. He had an enormous, fan base, and they really turned out for that one as well.
What was the first inauguration you took part in? All eyes are on Washington this week.
Yeah. Well, personally, the first one I worked on was the Reagan inauguration. The first one. My dad had worked at NBC for many years and worked on many inaugurations. I started working at that time as a camera utility person, which, if you don't know, it's the person who makes sure the camera guy doesn't trip when he's running around up and down the stairs and all that stuff. So I'd be responsible for making sure his cable didn't get tangled and he didn't fall over or people didn't run into him. So I did that on the Reagan, the first Reagan inaugural, and it was some experience. Reagan announced from the podium right while I was standing like 10 feet away that the hostages had been released from Iran. And it was just a very wild experience to be there for the first time, first of many afterwards.
Inaugurations are sort of a fresh start that a lot of people, and I know a lot of people are looking for a fresh start with President Biden.
Yeah, 100%. That was a real fresh start. They were coming off the Carter years. Carter was a one-term guy, and they purposely held up the releasing of the hostages just to sort of embarrass him, as I recall, so Reagan could announce it, even though it was like already a done deal by the time the inauguration happened. But yeah, we need a fresh start for sure, and they are that. So I'm looking forward to see what Joe could do. I'm a big fan, regardless of politics. I'm just a big fan of the guy himself.
I know you've worked at ABC and NBC. How is it when, from the network side, what are you doing to prepare for this kind of occasion when there's just going to be the whole planet watching through the lens that you as a producer or cameraman or even a utility are contributing to that picture?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's an incredible amount of preparation that goes on, as you can imagine. I mean, people start preparing for the next inauguration on this inauguration day. So at the networks. My primary responsibility over the years was working at the Capitol, being technically in charge of all of the production aspects of what they call the pool feed. And that is the pictures you see when you flip the channel through all the networks and you see the same shots. The pool feed is providing that. So all the networks split those up. So NBC would handle the Capitol, ABC would handle the parade, and feed those pictures out to all the networks. My job for years was for 4 inaugurals, I think I did, was to be technically in charge of the Capitol, which was like 30 plus cameras. And my dad directed all of those as well. So I sat right next to him in the production truck, and we had those 4 inaugurals too. It was both Bush and both Clinton.
The pool is so interesting because obviously this is kind of the bullseye of the imagery that people come to remember as the event. And that's not just inaugurals, but it's a lot of big historic events. And I know your dad has contributed a lot to some of those memorable moments as a TV director himself for many years. But what is it like to have that responsibility, knowing that what's going through your eyes via directing, with the pool, could shape how people remember an event?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I got to tell you, as a television person, in any part of the production, it's really exciting to be, making those decisions of how it's going to look, what it's going to sound like, and it's going to be played back for years and years. Today, I was watching some CNN footage of past inaugurals, and there was a shot of Bush with his hand up, but it's looking kind of from low angle up at him. And I convinced them to let me put this camera, tiny little lipstick camera, like a GoPro. But back in those days, they didn't even exist. And we had to go through all this stuff to get this camera there. But it was my idea. I talked my dad into it, and we put it there. And it's the shot that you always see of him. The rain's kind of coming down and hitting the lens, and it's close up. And he's got his hand up, almost like the shot of me right now, but from a lower angle. But it's exciting to know that you were the person who decided that that's what it was going to look like for all of history when kids see it in school.
We know that without a big physical audience on the mall or anything like that, that's going to be the images that people remember for the Biden swearing in coming up this week. Do you think that I've heard that they're trying to put new angles, try these new things, because we do have so many different cameras that just didn't exist even 4 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, it was always a big effort to get the inaugural. Well, it's actually the architect of the Capitol was the office where you had to go to get all these things cleared, and where you could put cables and where you could put cameras. To get anything new done was like an act of God, literally. To get a camera, I remember also getting one up in the top of the dome, looking straight down in the rotunda. I thought that would be a cool shot. Well, I mean, that took like 20 meetings. I'm not kidding you. Get that accomplished, and it's just incredibly difficult to do anything different. So this year, I'm sure they're bending the rules a bit. I really don't know what they planned, because even though I know the whole team who's doing it this year, they are so tight security wise, they're not letting anything out, except they are doing a virtual parade, much like they did at the convention, where they sort of went around the country for the roll call. They're doing something similar for the parade route this year, where they're going to do a tour around the country of some sort, but they haven't released what that is exactly. But I'm sure they're going to do something cool. It's the best director in TV, a guy named Glenn Weiss, who's an old friend of mine, does the Oscars, does the Emmys. Probably seen the video of him proposing to his wife at the Emmys. I mean, at the Oscars one year. He's doing it, so it's going to be great, whatever it is.
Speaking of the effort it takes to do something different, I want to go to a clip from something that I had filmed years ago that is a really interesting story about making that kind of change at the inauguration. Let's take a look.
It wasn't until about 1977 that I realized that the red carpet that was all over the inaugural podium was the background for the president when he spoke. Red is very bad for flesh tones, and I kept going to the joint inaugurational committee.
Why? What do you get? It makes people look ruddy, right?
Yes, and I kept telling them to use blue carpet, and they kept telling me, you can't use blue carpet. There's a saying that says you have to roll out the red carpet for dignitaries. And I said, but it's the worst thing going, because it covers the steps, the background for the president's inaugural address. So it kept going on and on through the years, and I kept getting you got to roll out the red carpet. When Clinton had his first inauguration, which Max and I worked on, where they had the red carpeting, and there was a man named Harry Thomason who was a Hollywood producer, and he was a close Clinton friend and advisor. I said to him, I want blue carpet, Harry, and Harry said, I agree with you. We went to the Presidential Inaugural Committee, and they said, too late, the red carpet's already been bought. So 4 years later, when Clinton was reelected, and if you look at the two, you'll see the difference, I called Harry the day after the election, and I said, remember the blue carpet, Harry? And he called the Presidential Inaugural Committee, and he told them to call me and figure out which carpeting we should use. So they sent me a number of swatches, and this was the one I picked. You play them side by side or do a dissolve from one inauguration to the other, it's a total like day and night. And the Schindler blue has been used at every inauguration since then, even though now they sometimes have the edges trimmed with red, but the thing behind the president is now blue.
So Max, you come from a really interesting family. Obviously, your father helped to teach you to do a lot of what you've done, and you guys have gotten to work together. Even with, you mentioned the Clinton years, and obviously the switch from the red carpet to blue.
Yeah.
What was it like having a dad who was in the same business and helping to just work side by side on some of these huge events?
It was, the contribution he made to my career is immeasurable. I mean, I learned almost everything I know from him and a lot of his friends who were the guys who literally invented television news in the 50s and 60s. So I got to work with these guys who just were incredible at what they did. They were innovators, they were trailblazers, and learning from them, the work ethic that I learned from them as well was invaluable in my career. He's just the best. He's still around. He's in his 90s now, and I'm directing the inaugural coverage for BET this year. He's like, send me all the diagrams of the set, send me all the graphics. He still likes to look at all that stuff and is really into it. He's a real pioneer, though. Amazing guy.
I've learned so much just from every time I've gotten to speak to him. As you're saying, he still wants to.
Him. I forgot. You know him.
He still wants to take a look at, the sets and the plans. Do you ever watch, is it hard for you to watch big events or to watch the news when you're not involved and say, oh, I would have done it a little different this way?
Yeah, I've been sitting through the last year. I kind of took a little break. I'm talking to you from my motorhome right now. I decided to get out of TV, not really get out of it, but take a little break from it and travel in this motorhome for a while. So I left New York City, left my apartment, left my jobs. And for this last year, as you can imagine, it's been crazy watching all of the events unfurl. It's been, I've thought many a time, like, oh man, this is like a hell of a time to be directing TV news. So I'm really excited to be back here in New York doing a show that's, about all of it right now, probably the culmination of all of it. But yeah, it's hard. And I do look at it and go, oh, I would have stuck a camera somewhere else occasionally. But generally speaking, people doing all this work are really good at what they do. And a lot of them are out of work right now. So hoping we all get back soon.
It's definitely been a weird time. One of the things that I thought of so much in the last 11 months is that being in the studio as an anchor, something like that, it just wasn't enough when you're talking about the demonstrations, the protests and everything like this. This was really a time to be out there in the squabble, for the news where it was happening. And so I think we've just seen a lot of evolution in the last year, and I think we're going to see a lot of that as it goes on.
Yeah, I mean, we have, and it's a crazy time, man. I mean, who knows what's coming next? Every day is like a completely different story, and the challenges for TV news, for the inauguration, for all of these events, people reporting from home, doing what we're doing right now. I mean, this wasn't even a thing a few years ago. Now it's the way a lot of interviews are conducted on television. I mean, it's been an incredible time of innovation, even though it's been a very sad time. I mean, this industry has really gone forward leaps and bounds in terms of technology, things that people just wouldn't have been willing to try before. They've been willing to try anything now. And now we're doing the future right here.
Just like the Jetsons.
The future, son.
Well, thanks for being here, and we'll be watching BET to see which images you pick. But, good luck out there, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Hey, thanks, man. Anytime, and much success in the future, buddy. Let's get together soon.
All right. Thanks, Max.